Welcome back to Open Mic. Covering sports for a living is something that I've always said is a dream job, and it really is. It's the idea of going to practices and then going to games and being part of that as your weekly routine. Sometimes it still doesn't even seem real. You're waiting for somebody to step in and say, okay, now you got to go get a real job. But it is a real job. It's the best job. And whether you work in television broadcast or on radio or in print, the essence of what we try to do is the same. It's just that the medium or the platform that we use changes. And I'll say this, we're all in it together, TV, radio, and print. That's huge. We all share a similar space in the locker rooms, share a similar space in press conferences. And I think there's a mutual respect among the group, which makes it work. And speaking for the Pistons group, there's a really talented pool of writers who cover the team on a daily basis. They're at every practice, churning out content, whether it's the Detroit News, the Athletic, the Free Press, Pistons.com, MLive, plenty of outlets to consume Pistons content. And one writer who I've gotten to know over the past couple of seasons covering the team is Omari Sankofa from the Free Press. He has his own podcast with Motor City Hoops, but really, he has this really good writing style and has built some great relationships with the players and built great relationships with the coaching staff. Ayden Novak's a student at Lake Orion High School. He's in the Sportscaster program, and he had a chance to go one-on-one with Omari about what it's like behind the scenes, covering the Pistons day in and day out.
What's going on, everyone? Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Omari Sankofa, who covers the Detroit Pistons for the Detroit Free Press. We're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to cover an NBA team day in and day out. Omari, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Ayden, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's start with the basics. For people who might not know, can you explain what a beat writer does, especially when it comes to covering a team like the Pistons?
Sure. So as a beat writer, you're essentially responsible for covering every aspect of the team. You are that team's news guy, whether it's a game, a transaction, an injury, feature story, like behind the scenes stuff with the coaches, front office. As a beat writer, you're responsible for all of that. And, essentially you're just wherever the team is, right? You're covering all the games, home and road. You're going to the practices. You're talking to players and coach before the game, after the game. Everywhere they are is where you are. So I think that's essentially what a beat is like you are the person that's an expert on that team or that topic or whatever it is. And it's your responsibility to know as much as you can so that you can report and be the information source for that team.
And you, like you said, you're around the players and coaches all the time. What's something that fans might not realize about what it's like really inside an NBA team during a long season?
They're regular people, They're NBA players and coaches, and they're high profile, but they laugh and joke around, and they're just like everybody else in a way. And I think that's what's rewarding about the job is just to kind of get to know people personally, not just through the lens of a fan on TV who might kind of put these people on a pedestal, but more so getting to know these people on a personal level, and that's what fans like to, when they read stuff about an athlete or a coach or somebody else, and they can see themselves in it. Like you see that they kind of go through the same struggles, everything else. It's really cool to be able to kind of follow that, day by day, and see how they navigate this crazy world, obviously, that the NBA is.
Focusing a little bit more on the team, the Pistons are so young right now with players like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson. From what you see up close, what's the vibe around this team?
The vibes are good. It's been a very confident group all season. It's been a very resilient group all season. They understand that, like, they're here now, right? Like, you had a season that was far more successful than anybody could have expected. They added 30 wins, going from 14 to 44. And now you're in the playoffs and you have a chance to compete for something more. So, they want to win these next 3 games and make it a series again, obviously. But, I think there's also just a lot of pride and a lot of confidence that, this is a group that's figured things out. And, whether it's this year or a future year, they will continue to make that type of push. So I think it's just confidence right now.
Okay, take us behind the scenes for game day. You wake up, then what? What's your full routine from the morning shoot-around to the late-night post-game article?
Yeah, so shoot-around is typically 10 or 11 a.m., depending on if you're home or on the road. So for a 10 a.m. shoot-around, like let's say here in Detroit, I'll probably get to the practice facility like 10:20, 10:30 at the latest, and then we go down to shoot around. I might talk to a player or coach if I have anything planned, or I might just kind of be there to show my face and just kind of chat to people off to the side and do that. But before every game, there's typically a shoot around. So after shoot around, like might be 11:30 noon. You kind of have a few hours to kind of do whatever. If you want to knock out some work, you could do that. If you want to take care of some errands or anything else, like you kind of have that 4 hour window before it's game time again. So for a 7 p.m. game, I would say doors for media typically open around 4:30. So the home coach always talks an hour and 45 minutes before the game. So for a 7 p.m. game, we're talking to JB Bickerstaff at 5:15. So typically I'll get to the arena by like 5 at the absolute latest, just to be there in time for that. But the work really does start probably about 2 hours before the game, at least on average. So uh, opposing coach speaks at 90 minutes before the game. So I may go to the road coach's press conference at 5:30, and then you have an hour and a half before the game. Sometimes I'll just transcribe the interviews and maybe knock out some work if I'm going to work on something after the game just to get a head start. Sometimes I'll just sit in the arena and talk to people who are passing by, whether it's people from the team or like whoever really, right? And then obviously you have the game. So to say this game goes from like 7 to 9:15, 9:30 ish. You do post game interviews, and that's a press conference with coach, and then one or two players, and then you go to the locker room after and do any more interviews you need, and then you have a story to write. And I typically produce 2 stories on game night, so I'm writing an instant story that's due pretty much right after the buzzer, so I'm writing during the game, and then I have a follow up story after. So by the time you finish interviews and writing, uh, if I'm really quick that night, I might be done before 11. If it's a longer night for whatever reason, I may not finish up till after midnight. So that's kind of how a full game day goes. Like, it starts usually with shoot around that morning, and then it ends when it ends. But kind of from start to finish, like from 10 a.m. to like 10 p.m., like off and on, you're always doing something team related. So yeah, the game itself is only a couple hours, but it really is sort of like off and on, like a full day event to cover a game.
Last one here. You're around the team way more than the fans are. What's one thing that most people don't see about what it's really like during a long NBA season?
I think just the sheer amount of travel and getting from point A to point B is something that fans may not pay attention to as much. Uh, like, let's say you're going on like a 4 game road trip. So, uh, you know, the trips from like Monday through Friday, something like that. No, if it's a 4 game, it'd be more like a week and a half. Let's say it's a 2 game road trip. Okay. So you practice Monday, you leave Monday. Let's say you're going to Miami. You get to Miami Monday night. Tuesday, you have a shoot around. You're there. And then typically teams leave like right after the game. So, like, if the game wraps up at like 10, oftentimes they're on their flight by like midnight to board the next spot. So if you're going from like Miami to Dallas, you're getting to Dallas probably 2 or 3 a.m. You may have a practice that day, and it's just a lot of like immediately playing games and boarding flights, playing games and boarding flights. The travel aspect, like obviously you're a pro athlete, like you're in great condition and you're kind of used to that aspect of it. But once you get to like 50, 60, 65 games, like that really does begin to add up. And I think you kind of notice for rookies, especially, like they're not used to playing that much basketball that frequently. So I would just say the season, like I would just say it's more so a marathon, right? And I noticed that there are always fans like in the NBA who got to live and die by every game, and like they can't stand when a star player has like an off night or this and that, and they kind of see everything as like a matter of like effort and like caring, and that's always part of it. But like they're like anybody else. Sometimes you have a bad day at work because you got a bad night of sleep or you're tired or whatever, and 82 games is a lot. And I think it's probably just the marathon aspect that fans may not matter as much. You're like, I can't believe Cade Cunningham only scored 12 points and shot poorly in that game. Like, that's unbelievable. As a reporter, I'm like, this is like game 4 in the road trip, but they've had all these late flights and this and that. And sometimes you just kind of get got. Like, you're just a little tired. And And that's really just so much of the season is just that marathon aspect and managing it to get from game to game. So I think you learn to kind of look at the overall product, right? Like weeks at a time rather than just games, because you understand that there's so many factors before games that can lead to a certain player's performance. So just the marathon aspect of it, I think fans would be surprised to see just how busy these guys are.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us and giving us the inside look at life on the NBA beat. Good luck the rest of the season. Let's hope the Pistons keep trending up.
No doubt. Thanks a lot for having me.
The Pistons are trending, and that was Ayden Novak from Lake Orion High School with Pistons beat writer Omari Sankofa from the Free Press. Again, Game 6 of the Eastern Conference playoffs is tomorrow night at Little Caesars Arena, and there's a really good article in today's Free Press from Omari about last night's hero of the game, Ausar Thompson. Had probably his best two-way performance of the season, had 22 points, and he held Jalen Brunson to just 16 points. It's a good read on Ausar. Remember, Ausar Thompson just 22 years old, but really coming to his own as an elite NBA defender. When we come back, from a beat writer to an NBA sideline reporter who's at the top of her game, Lauren Jabara from TNT joins Open Mic right after this.